Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson. And of course, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson, and this is another palmistry video. This time, we will be discussing the lifeline, which can reveal many things about your lifetime, including the health and quality of your life. So stay tuned. The lifeline is one of the main lines in palmistry, and it can reveal many things about your lifetime. The lifeline is the line that travels from the Mount of Jupiter, which is this little mount of flesh right here below your index finger, and it travels toward the Mount of Venus, which is this mound of flesh right here near your thumb. The lifeline doesn't necessarily tell you exactly how long your life is going to be, but it tells you more about the general trends of your lifetime, such as the health of your physical body, or if you have a lean towards spirituality, or even your childhood trauma. The lifeline can also tell you if you are likely to travel abroad or be more focused on family or your career. So let's go ahead and take a look at the lifeline and see exactly what it is that you can learn from this line. Your lifeline can be long or short, and it doesn't necessarily determine if your life will be long or short. Many times, if you have a short lifeline, it is generally because it breaks off and moves off to the side down a little further. And my lifeline actually does have a little break in it and many different disturbances, which we will be going over what those might mean. If you have a break in your lifeline, this could represent a time in your life where everything just changes suddenly. This could be the loss of someone through death or through the ending of a relationship, such as a divorce. This could also represent things like winning the lottery or getting a huge promotion or something like that, where your life situation just suddenly changes. So breaks are quite often seen in the lifeline because many of us out there have had situations that kind of changed the path of our lives. I know that I have, and I have a break on my lifeline to prove it. If you have a small fork on your lifeline, that could mean that you are able to have your hand in multiple things at once with a balance. So maybe someone who can have a good balance between their family life and their career, or somebody who moved away from family, but they can come home often to visit, or something along those lines. Now, if you have a long and narrow fork, then that would represent a lifetime or a time in the life where it's more of a struggle or difficulty. And this could represent situations such as being a single parent, raising a child alone. If your lifeline just kind of tassels off at the end, rather than making a fork or just ending abruptly, then those tasseling lines would represent your death being due to a longer period of time with bad health or some kind of illness. So it would be unlikely that your death would be by some type of surprise or accident with that marking. If your lifeline just ends abruptly, then it is likely that you will have generally pretty good health all the way up until the end of your life. And so you won't have that period of time where you may be suffering from some kind of disease or illness. The start of the lifeline up near the Mount of Jupiter can actually be either very clear or, kind of messy with a lot of lines all around. And so if the start of your lifeline is very clear, then you had a very uneventful, for the most part in a good way, childhood, which had no real problems. Now, if the start of your lifeline is a little messy, then there is a likelihood that your childhood had some type of difficulties involved in it. If you have islands early on in the lifeline, then the islands there could represent that you had some type of possible health problem in childhood. And lines that move downward from the lifeline early on could mean that possibly you lost someone who meant a lot to you early in your life. Islands on the lifeline in general represent basically a period of difficulty in one's life, and it could have to do with a multitude of things. The difficulty could be in the person's health, or maybe in their finances, their career, or even in their relationships. So it just kind of depends on the person when it comes to that island. But regardless, the island itself represents that energy of just going through a period of difficulty in one's life. Now, a lifeline that actually bows really far out into the hand, creating a very large Mount of Venus, could represent someone who has a very strong passion for life and basically wants to live life to the fullest. Now, if the lifeline is a little bit straighter, causing this Mount of Venus to be a little smaller, then that would mean that the person with that line is more of a thinker and dreamer, and possibly even less interested in making money. And the person who has a line that comes all the way down around the thumb, that could represent somebody who is very close to their home life. And so that person is very much connected to their family. Your lifeline can either be tied to the headline or it can be separate from the headline. So, interestingly, on my left hand, my dominant hand, my lifeline is tied to my headline. But on my non-dominant hand, my lifeline is actually separate from my headline. If you have a tied lifeline, meaning that the lifeline is connected or crossing with the headline, then that would mean that you stayed in your home with your family for a long time before moving out on your own, or you're deeply connected with your family. Now, if your lifeline and headline are separated, then that would mean that you left home at an early age. Now, for me, on my non-dominant hand, my lifeline is separated. So it is true, I did leave my home at an early age to start my own independent life. But with my lifeline being tied on my dominant hand, that is also true, because while I went my own way, I did return back to my family home at one time. Not only that, but once I had my children, my parents played a big role in helping me to raise them. Therefore, I wasn't fully independent from my parents after all. Now, if you have parallel lifelines, which are two lines that run directly next to each other, then that would represent something called a parallel line, or sometimes called a shadow line or a sister line. Basically, having these parallel or shadow lines running some length of your lifeline, then that represents that you have a lot of spiritual protection and also an inclination to look into things such as hand reading or your clairsenses and all of those spiritual topics. So the sister lines or parallel lines are lines indicating that you have this knack for spirituality. And I do have these parallel lines as well. If you have many disturbances on your lifeline, such as bars or islands or, basically a bunch of lines coming off of your lifeline, those could represent different difficulties or traumas that have happened along the way. So you may even find more of that timeline if you take a look at your non-dominant hand, if you notice that you do have a lot of disturbances on your lifeline. Because a lot of those disturbances show up from past events that have taken place, and it just kind of marked you with some type of trauma from the experience. If you have a line that comes off of the lifeline moving upward after an island, that actually shows a period of self-motivation that was following that particular difficulty. So it's like you were able to bring yourself out of that difficult situation. And lines that move downward from the lifeline would represent things that have fallen away from your life. And these could be anything like relationships or careers that weren't going the way that you wanted them to. So the downward moving lines represent things that just fall away. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button and share this video with all your friends out there. And of course, if you're a viewer but not yet a subscriber, I would love for you to click subscribe down below. And once you have subscribed, you can turn on that notifications bell if you would like to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.